Welcome to Alternative Dog Moms Podcast. I'm Kimberly Gauthier, the creator of Keep the Tail Wagging. For the past 9 years, I've been blogging about raw feeding, pet wellness, and life as a crazy dog mom. I've seen massive improvements in my dog's health since I started raising my dogs naturally, and I'm passionate about sharing my experience to help other pet parents.
I'm Erin Scott. For the past 9 years, I've been researching and learning everything I can about healing cancer, allergies, autoimmune, and mystery illnesses in both my dogs and myself, and I can't wait to share with you everything I've learned on this journey. As the Alternative Dog Moms, we're bringing you all the latest dog health news that we're following and sharing the tips, tricks, and resources we learn along the way. Now, let's get started. Hello, Kimberly.
Hello, Erin.
We have two very exciting guests with us today.
I'm very excited. So, you want to do it? You go ahead and do it.
You can have the honors.
Okay.
I know you're excited.
It's my two very dear friends from CocoTherapy, Carmina and Carissa. What cracks me up is that we've known each other for a long time.
Yeah.
But I think, because I've seen you at Super Zoo, but I think we really got to know each other after your presentation at the Dogs Naturally Summit thing.
Yes.
Because it was one of those situations where I thought I was doing so well with my big tub of Costco coconut oil. And after one presentation, no longer bought that, stocked up on CocoTherapy. And I have been using CocoTherapy and the coconut oil in my house ever since. And it's funny because when I think about what I use it for, and it's so far beyond my dogs, because I use it on myself. I use it to moisturize my skin. I use it to take makeup off. I use it as a natural deodorant. I use it. When I go out and I'm out and about with the dogs, I put it on my skin and put it on their coat to keep the bugs away. It is such a huge part of, I cook with it. It's such a huge part. And so I'm just excited to have you guys on.
No, it's great. Well, thanks for having us. Yeah, you're an honorary family member now, Filipino, because coconut oil for everything, like what our family does. You'll be very proud.
Yeah, it is. It goes. I use it for if I have a skin rash, I put it on. If I have a bug bite, I put it on that. It's just, it cracks me. There's a movie. What is it? My Big Fat Greek Wedding, where they put Windex. Yeah, mine is just coconut oil. I brush my dog's teeth with it. I rub their paws with it. And it's funny because I'll have people like products who want to, hey, would you review this product? And I was just like, no, I just use coconut oil for that. It's just sort of like there's so many things. It's like, no. You could just use coconut oil for that. That's perfectly fine.
I use it before I brush my teeth too.
Well, Did you hear about that pulling thing?
Mm-hmm, that's what I do. Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't done that because despite the fact that I use coconut oil for a lot of things, I cannot stand the taste of coconut oil. I can't. I love the smell of it. Cannot stand the taste of it.
If you oil pull, believe it or not, you're not really tasting it for some reason. Because I like coconut oil, but I can't eat too much of it. Like I'll cook with a more, But if you put it in your mouth and you're swishing it, because I oil pull for 20 minutes in the morning.
Oh, I don't do it that long.
That's the recommended. That is the de facto standard time. They say to pull all the toxins out of your body because their mouth is so porous. I'll put it in my mouth, and while you're swishing it, you're not tasting it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't really taste it either. Yeah.
I'll try it. I'll give it a try. I'm down for anything.
I just do it till I can't stand it anymore. It's never been that long though. 20 minutes though.
Yeah, maybe try the MCT oil. It's a little milder.
Yeah. That's the other thing. Is like I have the MCT oil in the house. I love it. I never knew that I would become such a CocoTherapy, connoisseur, I guess I would call myself. So tell us about the beginning. What was the beginning of CocoTherapy? What's your origin story?
Okay, I'll start. Well, we've been making coconut oil for 3 generations in our family before CocoTherapy even started. So like you, we used it for everything. My grandma used it when we were growing up. We use it for food and medicine, topically and internally, for practically every condition in ourselves and our pets. So we just grew up with that knowledge. Well, when we came here to the US, we brought our dogs with us from the Philippines. We had a Yorkie and we had a Cocker Spaniel. And
there was Violet.
Yeah. So, so we've always used that, but then we got another Yorkie, Violet, and she had really severe allergies. And this is before we knew anything about integrative veterinary medicine, holistically raised animals, raw feeding. We didn't know any of that. The only thing we knew that was holistic was coconut oil. But anyway, so we ended up going to a regular veterinarian, the conventional ones, and they gave us prednisone, the usual what tons of people experience. And because she was only 1 year old, we were so terrified giving that to her for the rest of her life. We could not wean her off of it. So we thought, she can't be on pred forever. There's got to be another way. Mm-hmm. And then we learned about a holistic veterinarian who happened to be Dr. Karen Becker, when she used to practice in Bourbonnais in Illinois. And this is before she was famous, obviously. So we decided to go see her. And she just opened her eyes with food, diet,
eating fresh,
even raw, but we weren't quite on board with that because it kind of freaked us out. But in the Philippines, we used to feed our animals fresh food. We never bought kibble because that's just how it was. Kibble was expensive. So, and we didn't understand why all this just stuff was happening over here in the States. We were giving the best kibble, the best dog food.
I believe it was pedigree and IAMs, all that. Yeah.
So she taught us about cleaning up. That. Yeah, maybe not. She taught us about cleaning up the diet, but then she said something that really made us think. But she goes, you should add coconut oil, virgin coconut oil, in her diet. It'll help with her skin condition. And it also helps regulate her immune system because, allergies is an overactive immune system. So, Chris and I were pretty shocked because that's something we've known, but we've always taken for granted. We never really thought about it as it related to allergies. We knew what lauric acid was. We knew that coconut oil helped regulate the immune system, but we didn't tie it together with allergies.
Well, plus when you're growing up, you take these things for granted. Our grandmother said it, and we just thought, oh, whatever, it's just what grandma, old wives' tale type of thing.
Yeah.
And so we got her started on coconut oil. It was ours that we bring from the Philippines. And in a matter of maybe 2-3 months, we were able to wean her off prednisone, and she just flourished. Yeah. It's everything, of course, the clean food and the coconut oil. But the thing that happened is when we ran out of our coconut oil, I went to the grocery store and brought a brand from the store.
Yeah.
And we saw a difference. So that's what opened our eyes. I mean, while it helped a little bit, it wasn't exactly the same.
Yeah.
A little bit of her itching and scratching would come back. She was a little bit yeasty. She still had that smell. I'm like, something is different. So we reached out to our family in the Philippines and they said, well, what are you using? So we told them and they said, it's not the same thing. Mm-hmm. That's when our eyes really opened up to the different types of oils and how it's made. I mean, it's very much like olive oil. You can go to the store and buy a wonderful bottle of olive oil for $22. Get one for $2. You're getting what you pay for and how it's made, the color, the smell, everything. It's very much the same thing. So we learned that. So we're basically, can you send more oil over? Because we need it badly. And that's how it started. When we would bring some, every chance we got, we told Dr. Becker about it and she wanted to try it. And the rest is history. We said we need to bring this oil in for the animals. So basically, since we started in 2009, it's just been a prolonged process of educating people, first of all, that what coconut oil is and why it's good for dogs, and that there really is a difference. I think the hard part when people say, oh, it's all the same, but there's really different ways to make it, different ways to process it, just like anything.
Yeah.
So that's basically our story. We knew it worked and we wanted to share it with others.
Yeah. So I would love to go over some of the myths about coconut oil because, it's so confusing, I think, to people to see a brand such as yours and the fact that you are so respected. And then the random people who come out and say things like, oh, no, coconut oil is dangerous because of, and they fill in the blank and they reference studies without explaining the limitations of the study or what the study really did. So like, what's one of the biggest misconceptions about coconut oil that you find yourself correcting?
Hands down, I think it's a saturated fat, which it is, but stay away from it because it's a saturated fat. It's bad for you. It's bad for the heart. It causes leaky gut, and it's bad for dogs with pancreatitis and can even give them pancreatitis, which is the furthest from the truth. So if you dive in, yes, it is a saturated fat, but it's a different kind of saturated fat. And this is what people don't know, and I'm constantly correcting them. The saturated fat that we're being warned about are long chain fats, which are like animal fats, usually cooked, meat fats, proteins, butters, things like that. Coconut oil is a medium chain fat, which is a very different chemical structure. It's just all fats are made out of carbon atoms. And so long chain fats are like 14 and higher, usually 18 to 22 carbon atoms in length. So they're much harder to process. They're metabolized very differently in the gut. Now, coconut oil, being a medium chain fat, is no bigger than 12 carbon atoms, depending on the medium chain fat. There's three kinds: lauric acid, capric, and caprylic acid, and they all have different lengths. So they're metabolized very differently. So they don't need pancreatic lipase to break it down. They also don't need chylomicron activity, which is sort of a phospholipid that transport fats out of the intestines. That's what it does for long chain fats. It doesn't need chylomicron activity. And it goes straight through the portal vein to the liver, and it's broken down in the liver. Doesn't need bile acids to break it down, and it's converted to ketone. So that's one of the most unique things about coconut oil. I think it's the process to metabolize. It's very clean and very simple, and it is recommended by a lot of lipid experts and doctors, human doctors, for people with lipid disorders, or pets with lipid disorders, pancreatitis, or if they need to eat a low-fat diet. Mm-hmm. But I think one of the misconceptions too, Kimberly, that you were talking about is the whole debate on lauric acid. Because part of that whole debate that came out that say coconut oil is bad for you because it's a saturated fat, there's this group that thinks coconut oil is healthy as long as it doesn't have lauric acid, as long as it's only caprylic and capric acid. So that there's this whole debate about lauric acid being bad for you. So that's the other misconception. And their premise is lauric acid is not a medium chain. They are saying that lauric acid is a long chain fat, which is why it causes the leaky gut and all this. But, frankly, there's no studies that show that lauric acid is a long chain, none. I mean, show me one study. In fact, there are studies that show that the metabolic process of lauric acid actually acts as a medium chain fat. Plus all the chemistry databases in the U.S., there's three major ones. They classify lauric acid as a medium chain fat. And we have studies that show how it's metabolized because they check chylomicron activity. There's a lot of ways you can check how it's metabolized. So that is a huge falsehood that keeps getting propagated in social media, that lauric acid is bad for you. Avoid coconut oil if it's got lauric acid, which is so they'll say use MCT oil because make sure it doesn't have lauric acid. So that's a huge no. And in fact, lauric acid is written and studied by Mary Enig, who is like the fat expert of the world. She's no longer around, but she wrote the ultimate authority on fat. And lauric acid really is the king of medium chain fats. It is unbelievable. I mean, it's found in mother's milk. It's what builds immune system in babies. So mother's milk is primarily made up of medium chain fats. And it's designed that way because when babies or baby animals drink mother's milk, it helps them build a healthier immune system. So that's the primary reason. So to say that coconut oil will cause inflammation or leaky gut is not accurate at all.
So if you buy coconut oil like at the grocery store, what is the difference between that and your product? And is it products like that are the reason that these kind of myths proliferate?
Well, so that's actually two questions. One of the reasons why those myths proliferate is because when they do studies, and Kimberly mentioned some of these studies they keep, showing that shows that it causes leaky gut. The coconut oil, a lot of it is hydrogenated or not even virgin coconut oil. It's a different type of coconut oil. It's highly refined, which is completely different, or it's hydrogenated. And if you read the studies, which a lot of people don't, they actually mix it with beef tallow, for example, or they'll mix it with other fats. It's not just pure straight out virgin coconut oil. So the studies could be flawed. And, a lot of studies, if you follow the money, are trying to prove a point. So they're trying to prove a point instead of trying to really see the truth. So that's one thing. And there is different kinds of coconut oil. So the coconut oils that you get in grocery store, they are a range of semi-refined coconut oils. They're considered food grade coconut oil or even commercial grade coconut oil. So those have different medium chain fatty acid compositions. Like the lauric, caprylic, and capric acid could be a lot less than like something that's virgin coconut oil that is not refined at all. It's processed properly and it's made for therapeutic purposes. So that's the difference. So it's just basically the amount of medium chain fats that you find in the oil. Yeah.
What I find interesting is that after all this time, I'm surprised no one else has come to the market with a coconut oil product, because you guys are pretty much the only ones. And it's just really astounding to me that, similar to, when Answers was at one time the only ones doing fermented, and even then, with Roxanne going over to Solutions, I mean, it's sort of like one of the people behind the push is still within that space, but it's not something that everyone is doing. And same with Billy. Billy is with Green Juju, but he originated with that. And it's still the same people. And I find it interesting that we don't see I think the only thing I ever saw was a toy, the Coco Chews, but I don't think that they're around anymore. I think they closed down during the pandemic. So I just always find it so completely interesting that we're not trying to compare different coconut oil products. It's sort of like people have decided to just leave that one alone.
Yeah. I think part of the reason is because it's really hard because we make our own coconut oil. We know where it comes from, how it's made. If somebody wanted to start their own coconut oil brand, they can. You can buy big, giant drums of it, fill it in your own bottles. But I think what makes it difficult to do, which we can do, is actually show the fatty acid composition. Actually, we went through this with the FDA that we are able to put hyaluronic acid on our labels because we're able to show them that the levels of lauric acid, caprylic, and capric acid. Whereas if you just get some general coconut oil that who knows from where, it's kind of hard to prove that. And I think
they don't test for that.
They don't.
I mean, just for food grade, they will not test the medium chain levels because it's not necessary unless you want to say, okay, this is a therapeutic brand and we need to test for these levels.
Yeah.
And it's expensive.
Yeah.
There's a lot of coconut oil manufacturers out there from Philippines, India, Sri Lanka. So that's where, and I've gone to the grocery store, I've done this, and I've looked at pretty well-known brands of coconut oil to see where it came from. And I will see in a lot of those bottles, product of the Philippines, India, Sri Lanka. They'll literally put 3 sources on one bottle because it's hard to get. Coconut oil is a tricky product, and a lot of manufacturers do shortcuts just to have higher yield.
Yeah.
So they'll get it when they can. They'll get it from India or whatever. They'll blend it. They may even blend it, which is why they will put 3 sources on one bottle. Very well-known brands. We are so picky. We will not. I can taste the difference if you go to India. I can taste the difference with the coconut oil if it's from a different region, probably because we grew up with it. So we're so picky. There's no way we can do that.
Yeah.
So we have a different reason of why we make our oil compared to, say, another brand. Their reason is volume and to make more money or sell as much as they can. That's not our reason, probably. So that's why we don't have a lot of competition there. They're like, we're just going to leave that alone. If they buy the grocery store brand, or there's other pet brands out there, coconut oil brands.
Well,
I don't want to say their name, but
I don't know if they exist anymore. There used to be 2 brands of pet
coconut oils that packaged for pets. They're out there. I see them. They're in plastic.
Are they still around though?
Do you go to Amazon?
I guess. Yeah, I guess. I'm not talking about the coconut oils that are for people, okay? Those are, right? There's a ton of them. Like you said, Costco is one of them. But
there's
for
some
pets
labels for pets.
specifically. Okay,
there's
well, I'm always curious about companies when they do come out with something for pets, because this is something that I see every year at Super Zoo, is a company that really is mainly for humans, but they realize that they can smack a dog on their packaging and sell the same product to pets, but they don't really know anything about the pet industry or the discerning pet parent. So we're looking at the ingredients, and we're just sort of, like, I saw one last year where the ingredients, it was sort of like three or four ingredients in a chew. And I know for a fact that you're not making a chew with these this is not right. Because that's always a conversation of, I don't like all those extra ingredients in the chew. And it's like, how did you manage to make a chewy product with 4 ingredients? And so I started asking questions, and I can sense them getting aggravated with me because, they're not used to people. I don't think humans ask enough questions about stuff for themselves, but we buy something for our dogs and all of a sudden we're like, the FBI, and we're interrogating people on every single thing on the package. So it wouldn't surprise me if a human brand just smacked a dog onto a package and said, okay, we'll sell the same thing, but I heard that dog people like this. Mm-hmm. And so we'll sell it to them too. And before you guys, I wouldn't have known to ask any questions.
Yeah. That's so true. I think because everybody wants to get in the pet industry, they'll get human products and just put a pet label on it. But I mean, there's nothing inherently wrong with that, because you'll see some brands that say a human grade. So you do know it's a human grade product. Obviously, if it's meat, you want a human grade or whatever it is. But the thing is, when companies do that and they don't do the research in terms of what the dogs can eat or metabolize, what the percentages are, is it better for them to do this way or that way? That's where it kind of gets tricky. And not all pet owners are as curious as you guys, to go look in the labels. But so many people just see, oh, good, look, great, it's human grade, it's got to be good. But more to it than just formulating it, with human, like for a human product. You kind of have to think about the animal. How do they absorb it? Can they absorb these ingredients better? And you're so right about, I've seen products when I see 4 ingredients, and it's like a perfect little crunchy. I'm like, there is something else that's binding this.
Yes, exactly.
No way. How did they get away with it? It really bothers my mind, because we will go to the drawing board a million times with just the ingredients we say we will put in. And if it doesn't work, we'll either scrap it or go back. There's just no way. The thought of putting something in there, not putting it in the label, makes me want to scream. I'm shocked they're not getting caught. But who knows?
Well, I know. It is what it is. So, I mean, I know one thing that I love olive oil. I love olives. And I just recently learned, because you mentioned olive oil earlier, that there are some olive oil brands that it's just not olive oil. It's olive oil and a couple other oils in it. And so that's another thing that I would be concerned about buying coconut oil from the grocery store, is if it's not just coconut oil. So going back to what you were talking about between medium chain and long chain fatty acids, if they're mixing something into this coconut oil, either to get a certain type of texture or color, because that's the other thing, is your coconut oil doesn't look the same as many, like for instance, the Costco tub, it was pure white, whereas yours has kind of a clear white tint to it. And like it's almost melted, like when the stuff melts down, that's yours just doesn't look pure white. Mm-hmm. So I would be worried about them mixing something into it so that it may over time be hard on my dog, because I'm basically just feeding my dog long chain fats without realizing it.
Yeah, and coconut oil, they do, most of them will mix it, but they will mix it with the refined coconut oil.
or palm oil
or palm oil.
something.
Yeah, because making coconut oil by refining it, and that's we're talking about hexanes and solvents to draw more oils out, and then they deodorize it, which is bleach it, which is why it's so white. They will actually blend that. It's cheaper to do that in bulk. Then they'll mix it with some virgin coconut oil
so that they can say it's virgin.
And then they can get the smell of the coconut in there. And some of them have a very mild smell. And they'll blend it. There's a lot of oils that will do that. And which is why, and they don't have to say that it's a blended virgin and refined coconut oil. You don't have to say it. Really.
You know, we actually have a blog that we wrote. It's about faking olive oil and fake coconut oil, where, you know, the food industry is really funny because I watched a show on Netflix and it was about companies that are faking honey. It's not even really honey.
Oh, it's crazy.
I mean, all crazy foods that are fake. Cod that's not really cod, and virgin coconut oil, virgin olive oil that's fake oil, and they do the same with coconut oil. So, you know, buyer beware with all this stuff that people can fake these days.
Honey is crazy.
Huge. They can actually get a DNA of honey and make sure that it's not
like fructose corn syrup.
Yeah, it's very funny.
God.
I mean, it's like, and to the fact where I think the USA bans honey from China because of that, but they can actually backdoor it into the US, where China send it to a different country that's acceptable to ship to the US. So, like, for example, for honey, I'll always buy locally sourced honey because nobody's going to do a DNA test on honey. But that's just how the food industry works. And unfortunately, being in the coconut oil industry, we really do see that happening too, which is sad because when people think that they can buy a big giant tub of coconut oil for $6 or whatever, I really like, oh my gosh, how is that even? I don't even get it.
Run.
I would be terrified to give that to my dog. I just don't get it. But anyway.
So I think we had started to touch on it a couple of minutes ago. Can you explain the difference between like MCT oil versus coconut oil? And like, are there times you should use one or the other?
Yeah. I mean, the primary differences between the oils is the amount of medium chain fats and the type of medium chain fats there are. So coconut oil is about 63% medium chain fatty acid, and then it has 37% long chain fats. So it's a blend, right? And it has more lauric acid, about 45 to 53% of lauric acid, and capric and caprylic acid are less, like 8% and 7% respectively. And then they have other types of oils in it, long chain ones. Now, medium chain fat is primarily all medium chain. So they strip away the long chain. It'll be about 93% or higher of medium chain fats. And it has more capric and caprylic acid, a lot more, and less lauric acid. And some medium chain oils, MCT oils out there, they remove the lauric acid. Because remember, we were saying they think it's a long chain fat, so they will remove lauric acid. Our MCT oil, we keep a little bit of the lauric acid in it. So that's a difference. MCT oil has more capric and caprylic and less lauric acid or no lauric acid. Virgin coconut oil is the opposite, it has more lauric acid and less capric and caprylic. And the reason why they do this, it's because the conversion rate for these medium chain fats are different. So when you take an MCT oil and you want rapid energy, feed the brain, etc., it's the capric and caprylic acid. They can convert to ketones by your liver in 1.5 hours, that quick. But then, so that your blood ketone is elevated, but then in 3 hours, it's gone. You basically used it and burned it. Whereas lauric acid converts at a slower rate. So it'll convert in 3 hours instead of the 1.5. But it can stay elevated. The ketones can be elevated in your body for about 8 hours. This is why you love lauric acid. This is why we put a little bit of lauric acid in our MCT, so that you will have that level of ketones. This is what we want for energy and for our brain, have that ketone level in your blood. So the main difference is, so if you want quick energy, high ketone levels and very quick, you take MCT oil. But if you want that elevated ketone for inflammation or whatever, or antibacterial to help gut health, we recommend virgin coconut oil.
But I also the difference would be that the different type, the medium chain fats, the caprylic, capric, and lauric, people would use the MCT oil, for example, for yeast issues, because caprylic and capric acid kills yeast. So we would recommend it for that. And then seizures, cognitive decline, because it has higher levels of MCT, then that could go to cross the blood-brain barrier and feed the brain with brain ketones, it's called, instead of blood ketones. So animals with seizures and dementia, that type of stuff, and they would opt for the MCT oil as opposed to the virgin coconut oil.
I was going to ask you about both of those things, yeast and the cognitive decline. So that's good to know.
For sure. And then also for dogs who are just so fat sensitive. Yeah. And or animals, have, for example, chylomicron deficiencies, or they can't handle it, or insufficiencies, do the MCT oil. If they're very, very sensitive, because it'll help. Yeah. But if you have a young, healthy animal or no real fat issues, I prefer virgin coconut oil a lot, to give to my animals, or else you can split it. You can give MCT oil in the morning. That's when you need the energy, that you get rid of your brain fog when you wake up, or the same with animals. And then I give virgin coconut oil at night, and I take virgin coconut oil at night, because that way overnight I can get that anti-inflammatory protection. I have the ketone levels in my blood stay, elevated longer overnight. So it's just, there's just different ways you can take it.
Nice. Very nice. And as far as giving coconut oil to our dogs, how do you guys incorporate it into your dog's diet?
Okay, I have a senior dog. Well, is she senior? She's a Chihuahua. She's 9. Oh, don't make her older than she really is. She's 9 years old. So, for a Chihuahua, I guess it's senior, but Chihuahuas can live longer. But I do give her the virgin coconut oil because, and I give it at night, like Carissa says, but I do give her the MCT in the morning because, her brain, her cognitive, I do want her to have higher caprylic and capric as well. And then I want her to have high lauric acid as well. So, which is why I'll give that at night. So for me, because I want those 3 levels higher than just giving one alone, I'll give both. That's basically the reason why I give them both. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we will give them. We follow basically the general rule of 1 teaspoon per 10 pound. However, sometimes we'll go a little bit less and sometimes a little more because every animal is different. I used to have a Yorkie who could handle a lot of coconut oil and her skin was gorgeous. And I had another one who even the smallest amount would make her very oily. So I would cut back. But for the most part, for us, I do give MCT oil in the morning and coconut oil at night. People say, aren't you getting too much fats? Because I want to give fish oil or krill oil or omega-3. I don't think they are, because they're very different oils. And there's a lot of studies where they actually are very complementary. I do not have a problem giving omega-3 fish oil or krill oil or whatever at the same time that I'm giving coconut oil. Yeah.
So when you're starting off with it and you notice some changes in your dog's stool, does that mean that you've done too much too quick? Even if it's just a tiny amount?
Yeah, you can, that means your dog's probably a little bit more sensitive to fat. So just, start slow. Yes, start slowly. Start with literally a little drop or a little, little pea size or less than that. But we've had so many stories of people's dogs that have eaten half the jar of coconut oil. They're like, oh my gosh, the bottle open, he licked half of it. Is he going to have diarrhea? And believe it or not, those dogs don't. So it just depends. That's because they're used to eating a lot of fat. Okay, yes. So for a healthy dog that doesn't have pancreatitis or any type of condition that makes them sensitive to fat, if they're started slowly and they get used to it, you give them a higher dose over time, they will be able to tolerate a lot of fat. So if you have a dog that is healthy and you start them out with coconut oil for the very first time and you give it too quick, yes, it will affect the stool, especially if they're not used to eating fat. Yeah, that's the main thing, because we get that question all the time when people buy our oil. They're like, how much oil should I give? Should I go slow? Yes, of course, always go slow. But the problem is we have customers that feed kibble. Then we'll have customers that feed a high raw diet.
or a keto diet, even like modified keto, the answers for those dogs are all very different. So if you're giving like a AFCO diet where the protein is like, or the fat is like 8% dry matter, it's like hardly any fat. So you'll say go slow because they're eating some sort of kibble. But then if they're feeding some sort of raw diet and they're following an ancestral diet where 25% or 30% of their food is fat, they can probably handle it. So it just depends on what their dog is eating currently. That plays a big role too in how much they should give.
Yeah, I think we also have such a distrust of fat over the years where I know one thing that I've had to learn is the difference between, just healthy fat versus the processed fat that, is what really the medical industry is warning us against because we all have such high processed diets. It's just insane.
It is.
So, one thing that I do with my dogs is because I very rarely bathe my dogs unless they roll into something disgusting. But I am a huge fan of putting coconut oil on their coat. And I actually did a video because people were like, how do you do this? What does this even mean? And so I just did a video showing people, this is what I do. Rub it in my hands, rub it on their coat. And I probably did the video within the past year or so. And every now and then it pops up like on TikTok or something like that, where I get a comment where someone's like, and so your furniture isn't all greasy. And I'm just like, yeah, no, I've never paid attention, but it evaporates or it works its way. It just doesn't leave my dogs with an oily coat. So can you explain why that's not the case? I mean, I know if I did a ton of it, but I usually just do like a quarter size or less in my hand. And that's good enough for an 80-pound dog's coat.
That's because it gets absorbed in the hair follicles and then through the skin, really. I mean, coconut oil is great in the fact that it actually goes into your skin barrier and it gets absorbed in your skin. So it's not floating on top of your skin so that it's getting wiped off on the furniture. Yeah. So, yeah, it's like I had a niece who had acne and most people say, oh my gosh, you got pimples, dry out your skin.
Yes.
Stay away from oil. Don't even put any oil thing. Mm. Well, in the Philippines, it's different. We actually put coconut oil on acne. And oh my goodness, we have pictures, before and after pictures that people have sent us of their skin and how beautiful it looks after, because the coconut oil is antibacterial and whatever it is that's causing their acne, and it clears it. And we say, rub it in really well until it's absorbed. And then if you've ever put coconut oil in your hands, after an hour or two, it doesn't feel greasy. In fact, you feel like you need to lotion your hands again. You know what I mean? It's actually not normal. Oily. It's not, because it absorbs so well into the skin. So it's probably the same way with dogs. Yeah. And I put coconut oil on my hair and my scalp. And if I rub it in really, really well, and the hair follicles, I can go to bed on my pillow and there will not be an oil spot there. I'm sure it's going to be different if I put olive oil or something. It's just a different kind of viscosity of oil.
I'm lucky that I don't break out a lot, but when I do, after I wash my face, I moisturize with coconut oil for a couple days, and it makes everything clear right up.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking what a mess I was as a teenager with like those Stridex pads, and it would like dry everything out, and then you'd be like cracked, and you're trying to like put makeup over it, and it's like all cracked and dry, and oh my god, that was my whole teenage life. Nobody told me about coconut oil.
Your skin wants oil, you know what I mean? It can't, because the drier it is, the more it's going to produce oil.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, it took me a long time to figure all that out.
And our skin, our cells, we have cells on our skin, right? They need energy too. How are they going to replenish and live and build? So they actually need fat from energy. So, yeah. So funny.
Yeah, in the 90s, it was like low fat, everything was low fat, everything, I'd never heard of putting oil on your face like back in the 90s.
I think the whole low fat trend for people and animals is really a killer. I think a lot of the diseases today, autoimmune diseases, are because people are stripping fat from their diet as much as they can, thinking it's the biggest thing, the biggest culprit in diet. But to us, having grown up with fat, I love fat. To me
too.
It's the most important macronutrient for people and animals. As long as it's not hydrogenated fat, it's a healthy fat. Our bodies need fat to thrive.
Yeah, our brains.
It's essential. Fat. Yeah, it's very essential. I mean, there's so many studies that have fat diets that are very low in fat and how it affects kids with ADD or ADHD, and how when they were fed a higher fat diet, it actually, removed or mitigated ADD and ADHD. And I'm wondering, look, I'm not saying it causes like low fat diets, but it really makes me wonder. All this
doesn't help it. I mean, think
yeah.
about kids and parents saying you got to go on a low fat diet. They want their kids to be very healthy. So they practically strip all the fat from their diet. And then you're wondering why kids are bouncing off the walls and have are just irritable or have that
autoimmune disease. It's like crazy. I mean, it's it's
not to mention the amount of sugar that's in our food.
Because it gets replaced with sugar, right? With carbs.
Because you got to get the flavor somewhere.
Yeah.
It's just sort of like, but because I see that I actually have a cousin that is a small child that weighs more than I do.
Oh, wow.
And she just started school. That's how young she is. And she weighs more than I do. And it's listening to the things that she eats, it all sounds like healthy things. But after a decade of learning to read ingredients panels and understanding what all these chemical words mean, it's just sort of like, yeah, I know it sounds like something that's healthy for a child to eat, but actually that's like the unhealthiest thing. I mean, it's sort of like Pop-Tarts. I mean, I don't think we ever thought Pop-Tarts were a healthy thing. They were kind of a treat, but there was a time when that's how we started our day was, give a kid a Pop-Tart because we're running late, but it just wasn't the standard diet. Whereas today, and for a lot of people, it is very much a standard. They think that that's perfectly healthy. And it does lead to a lot of health issues. I think some in the immediate, but some in long term, which is, I think, what we see with our pets is, we have these decades of, which it just blows me away. We have decades of feeding a processed diet, along with the growth in feeding more processed foods. We're seeing a growth in diseases and a decrease in longevity. Yet we're still arguing about the benefits of fresh food. And it's just sort of like, yeah, okay.
That is so mind-boggling, especially for kibble, for example. And I see so many bags of kibble that are like low fat for animals that need low fat, for whether it's a weight issue or pancreatitis, whatever issue it is. And if they're taking away the fat, what other macronutrient are they adding for the calories? I mean, it's obviously carbs or something. So it's like, so you have this high carb diet because meat is expensive. So what exactly are they removing if it's a low fat diet? So it's crazy, But people, you're right. People do argue about the benefits of fresh food versus all that processed food.
It's kind of interesting because I was talking to somebody the other day and we were talking about our dogs and the dogs we had when we were growing up in the Philippines, because dog food and kibble is so expensive there. Like you got to be really rich to feed, say, for example, Purina and go to the grocery store.
It's imported.
It's imported and it's so expensive. So everybody, I would say 80% of people feed their animals fresh food in the Philippines. Either the scraps or they'll buy a whole bunch of raw meat and food and, the meat that they don't like and the bones and whatever, they'll set it aside. Some may just boil it quickly and give it to their dogs, or some may just give it raw. But when our dogs in the Philippines were always made fresh food, no matter what. We'll put some rice in it, some veggies and a whole bunch of meat, right? When we brought fat, whatever, the fat we didn't want, the skin of the chicken that was raw, it just all went there, right? Our dogs thrived. So we had these two dogs, a Cocker Spaniel and a Yorkie that Carmina mentioned that we brought from the Philippines. They were healthy. Not a single thing was wrong with them. And we barely went to the vet. You just don't go to the vet in the Philippines, right? And I wonder why. So when we came to this country, we were so excited. We ran to the grocery store like, oh my gosh, we can buy those fantastic kibble diets that we could have never bought in the Philippines because it was so expensive. We poured over these beautiful bags of dog food. I think I went straight for the Purina because it had a picture of a Yorkie in it.
And I went to
IM
because it was pink
or purple. Took it home and we fed it to these poor Cocker Spaniel, 4 years old, and Barbie, who was they're about 4.
Yeah.
Literally, I'm not kidding. And probably several months,
maybe 3 months.
Yeah. Pele got colitis. Then he started to have a diarrhea, mucousy stool. I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Barbie started itching and scratching. Like they went from 0 health issues in the Philippines to having a ton of health issues when they came here. So we'd go to the vet and they're like, oh, WD, piece of cake. He's got colitis.
Health signs, WD.
So we went straight to the WD for both dogs because they both had tummy issues till they died. You know what I mean? Because we didn't know.
And I would take my Cocker Spaniel Pele to get to the vet, and he would be getting which I thought, because I was dumb, I called it a colitis shot. I would go to the vet and say, could you give him a colitis shot? Because he's getting a flare up of colitis, which I now know what it is.
It's metronidazole.
Yeah, and it's antibiotic. I mean, it's not.
So
that thing's for you.
Yeah, we didn't know any better. Those they didn't die because they were eating kibble, but it sure didn't help them live longer lives with colitis and etc. So, now thinking back and looking back, like, holy cow, didn't we think about how healthy they were? We never went to the vet in the Philippines and fed all those fresh foods and veggies and things. And then they came here and we switched them, bang, cold turkey to kibble. And then that's when all their health problems started.
Yeah.
So it took us years of different dogs to finally click. And it was with Violet, my next Yorkie after, when it clicked.
Yeah.
But it's so sad. I really want to help people when I see them, do the best for their dogs. They really do. They just don't know.
Yeah. Well, your story reminds me of Bobby from, is it Portugal?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it just the same thing. I spoke with the veterinarian who knew the family, and she was the same thing, that people there, this is just how we feed our dogs. And it's like one of those things where it may seem like, well, that's all we could do because, but it turns out that was the best thing to do. And we've sort of gotten so far away from, getting dirty and being out in fresh air and, just being exposed to things like we have a pond and my dog swims around in the pond. Someone once asked me, but you have fish in that pond. Aren't you worried about the fish and the frogs? And I thought that they were worried. I was like, oh, my dog can't catch them. It's like, he's not going to eat the fish and the frogs, but they were worried about like the germs from the fish. But I'm just sort of like, no, I mean, I'd be more worried if I had a pool and the chemicals that I put into the pool than I am about this wild pond with it has its own, ecosystem, and everything is balanced as it should be in this ecosystem. And so he's never had an issue with it. And all the dogs play around in the pond. But I think it's just, we've gotten again, we're afraid of fat. We're afraid of germs. We're afraid of so many things. And in the meantime, using antibacterial on our hands on a daily basis, doing all of these things, we don't realize that we are killing our body's natural ability to heal itself.
Yeah, right. And a lot of people are so afraid of inflammation when what they don't realize is low-grade inflammation is exactly how we get our body stronger. So it goes back to mother's milk, the lauric acid and those medium chain fats that are antibacterial, and they kill the bacteria or whatever in babies or whatever. It helps them. It will kill a gram-negative bacteria, release dead like
polysaccharide.
Yeah,
lipopolysaccharide.
Yeah, dead endotoxins in the blood, and then the body will detect it and say, "Oh, there's something I need to watch out for and attack." So it does an immune response, very low grade, and then the body remembers that, and next time it just gets stronger and stronger. So inflammation isn't necessarily a bad thing. We need it to get stronger. So for people, when they panic when their kids have a cold, or they don't want them to catch a cold at all or anything, it's like, that cold is going to help your child be stronger in the long run. Don't put them in a bubble. And I think the same thing goes with our animals too. It's fine if they get a little bit of some sort of reaction to something. It just makes them that much stronger the next time around.
So you mentioned bacteria, which I'm so glad you did, because I wanted to ask this. So I know that coconut oil is a natural antifungal, antibacterial, but if we eat it, why isn't it killing the bacteria in our gut?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I actually wrote a blog about that. It's the coconut oil, it for some reason targets, it knows the bad bacteria or the gram-negative bacteria. First of all, okay, most people have about 65%, and maybe animals, we all have a blend of good and bad bacteria in our system, right? And if you're healthy, your good bacteria will actually outdo the bad bacteria. They eat better, the substrates, et cetera, and they kill off the bad bacteria. That's just the way the ecosystem goes, right? For some reason, coconut oil will target bad bacteria and kills it, and it helps the good bacteria grow. And I kind of tell people it's almost like when you have a pesticide, not that you put, no, it doesn't kill the grass, but it'll kill weeds. You have that pesticide, or you have an antibiotic pill that will kill certain bacteria, but not all. Coconut oil is the same way. For some reason, it's attracted to the casing of a gram-negative bacteria and breaks them down and kills those, but it leaves alone the good, positive, good bacteria. And again, it goes back to, I think, to mother's milk. That's the way they designed it, where that's just the way medium chain fats work.
And so you guys have a line of treats too, right?
Oh yeah, we do. So with Violet, my dog, who was so allergic to everything under the sun when we started the coconut oil, she also couldn't have a lot of treats. Because even then, back then in 2009, I learned to read some treat labels. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this? There's so many ingredients here I don't understand. So we kind of started making our own. And we thought, let's make a treat where we understood what the ingredients were and had nothing more in it. So that's basically how we started. We started a line of our treats, and we did it for very allergic dogs. We said, let's make a line for dogs that can't have any treats out there, which is why we started with our vegan line. Not that dogs should be vegan, but there's so many dogs out there who can't handle chicken or turkey or this. And she was just one of those. She couldn't have any poultry or whatever. So we said, let's just stay away from meat. It'll also help people if they had dogs who are allergic to certain proteins. So that was our vegan line. And then now we have, of course, a raw meat treat that we have, but we put coconut chips in them. Because our coconut chips, I had a PLE dog and she couldn't handle a lot of meat. So I found that if I gave her protein and our coconut chips together, she could actually digest the protein better. So we thought, why don't we make a raw meat treat with coconut chips in it? So everything we make is basically from experience and what we learn and what we do with our animals. Yeah. We don't just say, let's just make this because it's going to sell. But no, it's like, let's make this because it helps. So our meat treats, we have a lot of people who buy it and say, I don't know what it is about your raw meat treats, but it's the only one they can eat without throwing up. They have issues with, there's a lot of good dehydrated meat treats out there. So they don't know what it is about ours that their dogs can handle. And I say, you know what? It's the coconut chips. That's an ingredient. Why else would we put coconut chips in with the raw meat? It's because the chips are soluble and insoluble fiber, and it helps feed the bacteria in their gut, and it helps them break down that meat. So that's the difference with our meat treats. Yeah, too. Yeah. And of course, all our treats have coconut oil in them. Coconut oil or some sort of coconut ingredient, because we just love coconut. We don't want to use polyunsaturated fats or anything, or unsaturated fats. To us, it has to be like a saturated, easy to digest fat. Right. And that is stable, that doesn't go rancid and oxidize quickly, because there's nothing wrong with polyunsaturated fat, like olive oil, for example. It's very healthy. But there's nothing more toxic than a monounsaturated, or even fish. I mean, there's a lot of healthy poly and mono unsaturated fats, but the only problem with those is because they go rancid so quickly. I mean, they oxidize so fast. They, for us, that's like a big no-no. Just eating oxidized fat is very toxic to the body. So, which is why we prefer coconut oil. Yeah. Very shelf stable. Yeah. Exactly.
Yay. Well, ladies, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes,
you're welcome. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk for hours about this, I know, so we don't want to just get us started in fats and you can't shut us up. So thank you so much for having us.
I know I'll be at your booth at Super Zoo talking your ear off there as well, because I'm just so astounded by what you guys have accomplished. And it does blow me away just how much CocoTherapy has become a staple in my home.
Aww. Great. Thank you. Yeah, we're going to release 2 new products at Super Zoo. It's a secret. Oh. You'll probably see it. About it, Kimberly.
That's exciting.
Yeah.